Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's La Clemenza di Tito, which was live from Salzburg's Felsenreitschule. The conductor was Theodor Korensis, the production was done by Peter Sellars, the sets were done by George Zippen, the costumes were done by Robbie Dwiveman, the lights were handled by James F. Ingalls, and the dramaturgy was handled by Antonio Cuenca Ruiz. My first experience with La Clemenza di Tito was when I was in my late tweens, early teens, and I mainly heard about it through its story, characters, music, and even its name only. Then when I was 15, I started listening to Dorothea Röschmann's rendition of the first act seduction aria of Vitellia, De se piacer mi vuoi, and even Carol Neblet's and Tatiana Troyanos' rendition of the first act duet between Vitellia and Sesto, Come ti piace imponi. Then when I was 16, I bought a Mozart opera aria CD and listened to Elena Garancia's rendition of Sesto's aria, which is very popular, Parto parto ma tu ben mio, and even her rendition of the Anio Servilia duet, A perdon nel primo affetto, in which Anna Netrebko was the Servilia. At the same time, I caught this particular opera at the Metropolitan Opera House alongside my late maternal grandma, with a cast that included Ramon Vargas, Susan Graham, Anke Fondum, Tamar Iveri, Heidi Grant Murphy, and Oren Grados. The basic plot of this opera goes like this. Vitellia, who is the daughter of the Emperor Vitellio, wants to rule side by side with Tito Vespasiano as his empress. Unfortunately, Tito had his eyes set on Berenice, who was supposed to be his empress, but has decided to send her back to Jerusalem. At the same time, Vitellia convinces Sesto to help her cause in usurping the throne. However, Sesto is very unsure of this because he is also a great friend to Tito and also that of Anio and his younger sister Servilia. Tito has his eyes set on Servilia, but Servilia is madly in love with Anio. So Tito totally understands the situation between Anio and Servilia and decides to just let them go. Vitellia has overheard the fact that Servilia was going to be Tito's empress, so she kind of has to further plant the seeds of ambition to Sesto's mind. Sesto, at the meantime, is very conflicted of his feelings toward one of his best friends, Tito, and the feelings of his lover, Vitellia. The first act concludes when Sesto and his accomplices burn down the capital and reveals to the people that Tito has been mortally wounded, thus closing the first act with a great amount of mourning. In the second act, we see that Sesto is going to be put on trial and be executed. Vitellia cannot bear the guilt any longer and decides to confess everything to Tito, who turned out to be alive, and to everyone else. As soon as Sesto is about to be executed, Vitellia comes rushing in and confesses everything. Tito decides to forgive everyone, and the opera ends happily. Not only did this opera have a pretty good story in my opinion, but it also had such wonderful arias and duets. Not only Vitellia's De se piacer mi vuoi and even Sesto's Parto parto ma tu ben mio, but also Vitellia's other aria, Non più di fiori, Anio's Tu fosti tradirti, and Tito's Del più sublime, and of course Servilia's S'altro che lacrime, and even the duets being A perdon nel primo affetto, sung by Anio and Servilia, and Come ti piace imponi, sung by Vitellia and Sesto. With that said, let's get on to what I thought about the production and costumes. What I noticed about this production is that they decided to transport the action from 79 AD Rome all the way up to today's times, in which the whole topic of migration and refugees basically come to mind. What we see is a great multitude of migrants wanting to get into Tito's palace, and they just want to be considered as citizens of his country. Not only that, but we also see Sesto and his sister Servilia along with the migration crowd, as they also want to be a part of Tito's kingdom. We see Tito and his retinue, Vitellia, Anillo, and even his former flame, Berenice, and of course, Publio, coming to the scene and welcoming the migrants. I thought this was a pretty interesting production of this particular opera. And what I also noticed about this production is that Peter Sellars and his crew also decided to add in a great number of Mozart's other works, most specifically the Mass in C minor, and even that of Laudamus Te, which is given to Servilia. And in that rendition of Laudamus Te, Servilia basically expresses her joy of being with Anillo forever and ever and ever, but also her conflicting feelings of what she's going to do for her country and for her emperor and for the people. But she knows that she can balance those two duties, not only for her love for Anillo, but also for the love of her people. So she kind of has to be happy both ways. And what I also liked about this production is that it manages to be quite deep on a certain level. We see that there is this huge power game between Vitellia and Tito, and even that of Vitellia and Sesto. And Vitellia is basically so full of ambition that she basically wants what Tito wants, and that is the power that she wants to gain. And I thought this production played it very well, but you also get to see that with that power comes the great responsibility that one has for the people, especially when the question of bringing in migrants comes into play. After the chaos in the first act, where Sesto shoots Tito in the chest, we see a great amount of migrants mourning for their loved ones, and we even get a section of a Mozart Mass to also add along with it before we get into the main opera. And I thought those musical cues were able to be a great addition to this particular opera, to bring it a lot of spirituality and to also state that this is also Mozart's second to the last work. So he was almost about to go out with a bang. And I thought it was really interesting. So overall, I did find the production in terms of its concept to be rather eye-opening and very enlightening because of everything it had to offer. We also get to see that there were also some themes which involved terrorist attacks and many other heavy themes that really play itself well into this production without being too offensive. And you have to leave it up to Peter Sellars to give this particular production a great amount of respect, understanding, and just making sure that everything comes into play well. And I thought the costumes were really well done. Tito has a sort of businessman-like suit. Publio has a general's outfit. Sesto sort of has this type of army-like costume. Vitellia has her high heels and her lovely selection of dresses. Anillo has his semi-formal attire, and Servilia has her lovely black dress. So overall, I found this production to be not only interesting, but very eye-opening, very eye-catching, and really great all around. Sure, for people who don't know the opera, they might get a little bit lost as to why there were certain musical interludes being added in. But for those who know this opera really, really well, will probably come to appreciate it much further. And now we get to the singers, starting off with Russell Thomas, who sang Tito Vespasiano. Much like a lot of the other Mozart kings, being Mitridate, Lucio Silla, and Idomeneo, what you do need in this role is a fine and graceful lyric tenor who also has a little bit of that spinto meatiness in his voice. He not only needs to have the lyrical grace of a Belmonte, Don Ottavio, Lord Percy, Leicester, and even Roberto Devereux and Alfredo Germont from La Traviata, but he's also got to have that dramatic flair of Hernani, Carlo Moore from I Masnadieri, Rodolfo from La Bohème, Ruggero Lestuc from La Rondine, and even a little bit of that great acting from Schwisky from Boris Godunov, and even that of Walter von Staltzing from the Meistersinger von Nürnberg, and even Eric's meatiness from Der Fliegende Holländer. He needs to combine lyrical grace with a little bit of that fine and dramatic flair of spinto singing. And when one combines all those facets, then this role will definitely be a great challenge for any full lyric tenor. And Russell Thomas certainly rose to the challenge when he sang Tito Vespasiano. I mainly knew him as mostly a spinto tenor, singing roles like Don Carlo from Verdi's Don Carlo and Ismaele from Verdi's Nabucco. But as I heard him sing Tito, I thought he managed to give a great amount of nobility, strength, vocal beauty, and a lot of nobility with this particular character. He was able to make this character come alive so convincingly that I was practically glued to my seat. And I also loved his death scene in the final act. Yes, Tito did not die in the original version of the opera, but in this production, he ends up dying from that shotgun wound. And the opera ends with a sort of lacrimosa for the emperor, which I thought managed to wrap everything up well, but it was kind of tragic. But I kept an open mind, and I thought he managed to die so convincingly. So I'm not going to mince words here. Russell Thomas was in great vocal form as Tito Vespasiano, with his superb sounding lyrical spinto tenor voice, that great stage presence, and of course his great amount of charisma, thus proving himself to be a very fine singing actor. He was regal from beginning to end, and he certainly had a great amount of vitality to carry him through the entire opera. Then we have Golda Schultz, who sang the role of Vitellia. And what you need in this role is a true dramatic coloratura soprano, due to the fact that Vitellia's vocal lines not only has some high singing, mostly reaching up to a high C, but also some really dark, low contralto notes. This role has also attracted some mezzos like Janet Coster, Janet Baker, Della Jones, and most recently, Alice Coote. So what you really need is a singer who can not only sing the high notes, but also reach those chesty low notes. It's not a super high singer like the Queen of the Night, but it does call for florid coloratura singing a la Amalia from Imaginadieri, Marguerite de Valois from Les Huguenots, Marguerite from Faust, Constanze from Die Entführung aus dem Serail, Sifare from Mitridate, Lucio Cina from Lucio Silla, Elettra from Idomeneo, Antonia from Le Comte of Man, Anna Bolena, Maria Stuarda, Elisabetta from Roberto de Vereux, Lucrezia from I Due Foscari, and even combine that with the meatiness of Norma and Odabella, and a little bit of that poignancy expected in roles like Mimi from La Boheme, and of course Violetta from La Traviata. This not only has a wide range in terms of the voice, but also in terms of acting. And she does need to be convincing not only as a sort of Lady Macbeth-like figure, but she also has to really make sure that she makes her quite sympathetic towards the end of the second act, thus making her character complex not only vocally, but also dramatically. And Golda Schultz did a solid job as Vitellia. Her voice is a little bit on the light side. Despite all that, she managed to sing everything so accurately and so well, and she acted the role of Vitellia convincingly. Yes, I would have loved to have a slightly heavier voice like Christina Durtekom, Rita Shane, Edda Moza, and what we've been having today with the likes of Klara Kolonets and Albina Shagimuratova. But I have to give a lot of credit to Golda Schultz for everything she had to offer as Vitellia. She was totally committed to her craft as a singer. She had a pure and lovely tone to her voice. She was accurate in all the coloratura she had to sing, and she was an overall dedicated singing actress, which is not an easy job to do, but she pulled it off with flying colors. This is a singer I would love to see a lot more often, and it also astounds me that she started off singing smaller roles like Ines from Il Trovatore, and even that of Ortlinda from Die Walküre, and has nowadays found herself into singing all of these leading lady roles like Musetta from La Bohème, Sophie from The Rosenkavalier, and of course Vitellia. And she managed to do it well. Vitellia is a tough part, and she managed to navigate it so well, all thanks to her superb musicianship and her great sense of theatricality. She deserves the highest amount of kudos I can ever give her, and here's hoping that she'll sing a lot more leading lady roles like Mimi from La Bohème, Antonia from Le Comte of Man, and maybe even Violetta from La Traviata, and of course, Marguerite from Faust. Who knows? Only time will tell when this young singer's career will definitely be in orbit. And it certainly is, as evidenced in her performance as Vitellia. And she totally stole the show. She was not only beautiful vocally, but she also had that Lady Macbeth-like ambition that she imbued to this character, and she even gave Vitellia a great amount of humanity. So, when all is said and done, I have to give a lot of kudos to Golda Schulz for making a great role debut as Vitellia. Then we go to Christina Gansch, who sang the role of Servilia. Unlike Vitellia's more dramatic coloratura soprano singing, Vitellia does call for either a light lyric coloratura soprano or even a light lyric soprano. She's a lot more soubrette-ish and ingenue-like in comparison to that of Vitellia, who is the prima donna of the show. She's basically the seconda donna soprano, and what you need in Servilia is a lovely light soprano voice. That type of voice which can sing the likes of Papagena from Die Zauberflöte, Celia from Lucio Silla, Elisa from Il Re Pastore, Olympia from Le Comte of Man, and even that of Nella from Gianni Schicchi, and of course Zerbinetta from Ariadne of Naxos, Die Fiacremilli from Arabella, and Isotta from Die Schweigsame Frau. She's not a super high singer like Zerbinetta or the Fiacremilli or even that of Olympia, but she does call for a lot of light and lovely singing as opposed to Vitellia's more commanding, dramatic coloratura soprano singing. And I thought that Christina Gansch was absolutely lovely as Servilia. She is a marvelous young soprano who has a darling stage presence, and she is so charismatic as a performer. She managed to have me love her as an overall performer. She has a magnetic stage presence which makes her so lovely to witness, and she was absolutely lovely. That's the word I'm going to use for someone like Christina Gansch. She was lovely. I mean, this is the same person who specializes in roles like Papagena from Die Zauberflöte. And she certainly has a wonderful future singing the more lyrical parts of Pamina from Die Zauberflöte, and maybe even that of Lauretta from Gianni Schicchi. Who knows? Only time will tell when this young, light lyric soprano who specializes in a lot of ingenue roles will definitely have her career bloom and blossom into orbit. But as for now, I thought that her interpretation of Servilia was wonderful. All thanks to that focused, light lyric soprano voice, which has that slight fullness and certainly a great future in singing more lyrical roles like Pamina from Die Zauberflöte, and I can definitely tell that she has a beautiful future ahead of her, all thanks to her gorgeous stage presence and that equally lovely light lyric soprano voice. She certainly has a very beautiful future ahead of her, and I cannot wait to see a lot more from her. Marianne Crebassa was gorgeous as Sesto, and what you need in this role is a true lyric mezzo who can sing all of the tough lines very well. Parto Parto is certainly not an easy sing, as it calls for a lot of legato and staccato singing and a lot of agility from any mezzo. And a lot of mezzos who have sung sesto also sang the likes of one of the ladies from the Zauberflöte, most specifically the second and third ladies, Cherubino from Le Nozze di Figaro, Dorabella from Così fan tutte, and maybe to some extent Donna Elvira from Don Giovanni, Ruggiero from Alcina, Isolier from Le Contori, and many other great roles for a lyric mezzo. Heck, they even went on to sing roles like Rosina from Il Barbiere di Siviglia, Angelina from La Cenerentola, Isabella from L'Italiana in Algeri, and also that of Sulma, Zaida from Il Turco in Italia, and all of these great mezzo roles which call for fine floored singing. And I thought that Marianne Crebassa was really gorgeous as Sesto. She has a focused, gleaming, and beautiful lyric mezzo voice. I should know because I first saw her singing in Charlotte Salomon, also at the Felsenreitschule, and I thought she did fabulously in the part. And I knew that she was going to have a great future ahead of her. Well, she certainly had that. She displayed an amazing amount of musicality. She was able to make Sesto come alive as a character, and I can definitely tell that this is a wonderful young mezzo whose career has gone further into orbit. She certainly has a lot of promise with a lot of great roles in the future, and she was certainly strong in roles like this, especially when it comes to the lyric mezzo repertoire. She stood out so well that I cannot wait to see where her career was going to go. It certainly is heading into orbit, especially evidenced by her great performance as Sesto. Then we go to Janine Dubic, who sang the role of Anio, and she was also a soprano. Now, what's also interesting about Miss Dubic was that she also sang the role of Servilia, and when I heard her sing the role of Anio, I thought she sang this role wonderfully. And what you need in Anio is also a lyric mezzo, maybe slightly lighter than that of Sesto, is pretty much my preference. But there are times that there are some sopranos who sing Anio, but more often than not, Anio is mostly the providence of a true lyric mezzo. Yes, a lot of Cherubinos, a lot of the Isoliers, and even that of the Rosinas, Angelinas, Isabellas, Arsaces, Sulmas, Zaidas, and even that of Meg Pages also sang Anio before making the transition to Sesto. And in terms of Anio, he does also need a fine lyric mezzo / lyric soprano voice. Someone who can not only hit those low notes superbly, but who also has his fair share of high notes. And I thought that Janine Dubic was really, really wonderful as Anio. She has a gorgeous, full lyric soprano voice, which she used so well. She has a beautiful stage presence, and she was that. She was beautiful both vocally and theatrically. She had this type of stage presence which made one want to love her in that particular role. And even though Anio is mostly the providence of a mezzo, I thought that Janine Dubic managed to sing the role well, thus navigating a lot of those low notes and the high notes so superbly that she was able to be a great vocal interpreter of this particular role. She really sold me as Anio, and she certainly stood out so well. We also had the pleasure of seeing the great basso / bass baritone Willard White singing the role of Publio. And what you need in this role is either a bass baritone or even that of a basso cantante. Lots of bass baritones / basso cantantes who sang Publio also went out of their way to sing roles like Filippo from Don Carlo, Massimiliano from I Masnadieri, Silva from Ernani, Colline from La Bohème, Angelotti from Tosca, Timur from Turandot, Fasolt from Das Rheingold, Heinrich der Vogler from Lohengrin, and also Don Basilio from Il Barbiere di Siviglia and Alidoro from La Cenerentola. He needs a superb sounding bass baritone slash basso cantante who can sing all of his notes well while also providing a great amount of grace and masculinity. And I thought that Willard White was great all around. What more can you expect from someone who was a very well-known porgy, Wotan, and even that of Klingsor, and nowadays has got into the more basso profondo roles. Heck, he even had his beginnings as Osmin from Die Entführung aus dem Serail, thus proving himself to be a versatile singer. He was magnificent, as he's always been. He still has that great focus found in his voice. It does not show any signs of wear and tear. In fact, I thought his voice still managed to sound as gorgeous, full, rich, and awesome as ever. And he made the best out of Publio's role, thus proving himself to be a great singing actor. So overall, the singing was magnificent from the likes of Russell Thomas, Golda Schultz, Janine Dubik, Marianne Krebassa, Christina Gansch, and of course the great Willard White. Every one of these singers did magnificently, and the conducting done by Theodor Kurensis was fantastic. He made sure that all the singers, all the orchestra members, and the chorus members went together superbly, and they did. And of course, the chorus and orchestra of the Salzburger Festspielhaus were magnificent, as they've always been. So overall, this was definitely an interesting production of La Clemenza di Tito, backed up by a great and insightful director in the form of Peter Sellars, great singing from Russell Thomas all the way up to Willard White, and great conducting by Theodor Kurensis. And for those of you who watched this particular opera, what did you think of it? Did you feel like Russell Thomas stood out so well as Tito? Did you feel like there was another singer who stole his thunder like Golda Schultz, Marianne Krebassa, Christina Gansch, Janine Dubik, or even Willard White? Or did you feel like there was something that just didn't really hold up? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in much later this evening for my final review here in Pesaro, which is that of Gioacchino Rossini's Stabat Mater. So until then, have a great day, everybody.